The end of 2024 marks a pivotal moment for Iran, as its carefully constructed network of regional influence lies in ruins. The Islamic Republic faces an unprecedented series of setbacks that have fundamentally altered its position in the Middle East. Most critically, Iran has lost its key ally in Syria, with Bashar al-Assad's flight to Moscow representing the collapse of what Iran called its axis of resistance. This dramatic shift began with the elimination of Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah in a September Israeli strike, continued through the fall of Damascus in December, and has left Iran's regional strategy in tatters. As Dr. Sanam Vakil from Chatham House notes, Iran has invested between $30 to $50 billion in Syria since 2011, making this loss particularly stinging. Inside Iran, the situation is equally precarious. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, now 85 years old, faces mounting pressure from multiple directions. The Iranian people, particularly the youth who make up about 70% of the population under age 30, are increasingly alienated from the revolutionary ideology that has governed their lives. Widespread economic hardship, with formerly middle-class families struggling to afford basic necessities, has fueled growing discontent. The memory of the 2022 Woman Life Freedom protests, triggered by Masha Amini's death and brutally suppressed by the regime, continues to reverberate through Iranian society. Women still defy the mandatory hijab law daily, risking arrest in a showing of persistent resistance to clerical rule.
The Iran deal is defective at its core. If we do nothing, we know exactly what will happen.
Iran's nuclear program has advanced significantly since Donald Trump abandoned the 2015 nuclear deal. According to international observers, Iran can now theoretically produce enough enriched uranium for weapons within a week, though weaponization would take months or longer. The incoming Trump administration in 2025 presents Iran with a critical choice: negotiate or face renewed maximum pressure sanctions. As Professor Nasser Hadian of Tehran University explains, Donald Trump, as a businessman, will try to engage Iran and make a deal. If that doesn't happen, he'll go for maximum pressure to bring it to the table. Looking ahead, Iran faces three possible paths. Number one, a pragmatic evolution where centrist elements of the regime offer strategic concessions both domestically and internationally to maintain stability. Number two, a hardline consolidation through a palace coup by conservative forces seeking to preserve revolutionary ideals at any cost. Number three, an inevitable regime change driven by mounting internal pressures and external isolation. However, most experts agree that despite its weakened position, the Islamic Republic remains resilient. As former Canadian diplomat Dennis Horak observes, millions of Iranians don't support it, but millions still do. The regime faces perhaps its greatest challenge since the 1979 revolution, but its future will likely be determined more by evolution than revolution.
همین شرارت، همین دخالت، همین خباثت، همین رذالت رو در اعمال خودش داره، این مرگ بر آمریکا از دهان ملت ایران نخواهد افتاد.
The challenge for Iran runs deeper than just foreign policy setbacks. The traditional power structure, centered around Supreme Leader Khamenei, who has ruled since 1989, faces a critical transition period. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, originally created to protect the revolution, has evolved into a vast economic and military empire that extends far beyond Iran's borders. Their power has grown so significant that their commanders openly state that they don't see themselves as bound by Iran's constitution or borders. This has created a complex dynamic where religious authority, supposedly paramount in the Islamic Republic, must increasingly share power with military and economic forces. The regime's response to recent crises demonstrates this tension. While Khamenei provides ideological direction, the IRGC's practical control over key sectors of the economy and security apparatus makes them increasingly influential in decision-making. Iran's economy presents perhaps the most immediate challenge to stability. The combination of international sanctions, mismanagement, and corruption has created a situation where, despite Iran's vast natural resources, ordinary citizens struggle with basic necessities. This economic pressure has particular significance because it affects the regime's traditional support base, the religious working class and lower middle class who were once the revolution's backbone. The experience of the last decade shows how economic concerns can rapidly transform into political upheaval. The 2022 protests began over moral policing, but quickly incorporated economic grievances, demonstrating how these issues are intertwined in contemporary Iran. The regime's dilemma is that serious economic reforms would require compromising with the West and potentially weakening the IRGC's grip on key economic sectors. The collapse of Assad's regime in Syria forces Iran to reconsider its entire regional strategy. The axis of resistance that Iran spent decades building now lies in ruins. This creates both dangers and opportunities. While Iran has lost significant strategic depth and ability to project power, this could paradoxically create space for diplomatic engagement. The incoming Trump administration's approach will be crucial. While Trump's maximum pressure campaign during his first term failed to achieve its objectives, Iran's weakened position might make both sides more amenable to a deal. As one of Tehran University's professors notes, there's a real possibility of engagement, though the risks of miscalculation leading to conflict remains. The sudden collapse of the Assad regime in December 2024 represents more than just the loss of an ally. It marks the end of Iran's decades-long strategy of building a continuous corridor of influence from Tehran to the Mediterranean. The speed of Assad's fall, taking just 12 days from the start of the opposition offensive to his flight to Moscow, caught Iran completely off guard. This rapid collapse reveals several crucial insights about Iran's current position. First, despite Iran's massive investment of approximately $30 to $50 billion in Syria since 2011 and the sacrifice of over 2,000 Iranian military personnel, Tehran proved unable or unwilling to prevent Assad's fall when the critical moment came. Second, the loss of Syria severely compromises Iran's ability to support Hezbollah in Lebanon. Syria served as the crucial supply line for Iranian weapons and resources to Hezbollah, and its loss effectively severs its vital connection. This comes at a particularly difficult time, as Hezbollah is already weakened by the loss of its leader Hassan Nasrallah in an Israeli strike and faces mounting pressure from Israel. The timing is particularly significant as it coincides with the broader regional shifts. The Syrian revolution's success has emboldened opposition to Iranian influence throughout the region. As James Jeffrey, a former US diplomat, notes, this is a totally unprecedented collapse of a regional hegemon. As we look toward 2025, The fall of Assad represents more than just a strategic setback. It marks a potential turning point in Iran's post-revolution history. The Islamic Republic faces a perfect storm of challenges: domestic unrest, economic hardship, leadership transition, and now the collapse of its regional influence network. The decisions Iran makes in response to these challenges will shape not only its own future, but the entire region's trajectory. Three paths appear possible: pragmatic adaptation and limited reform, hardline re-entrenchment, or gradual systemic change. While the regime has shown remarkable resilience over 4 decades, the convergence of internal and external pressures might finally force meaningful evolution. As one Iranian analyst quoted by the BBC said, "The Islamic Revolution of 1979 came to the world with grand ambitions of providing an alternative to both capitalism and communism. 45 years later, those dreams lie in ruins, much like the portraits of Iran's leaders now trampled on the floor of their Damascus embassy." The question isn't whether Iran will remain a significant regional power. It will, by virtue of its size, population, and resources. The question is what kind of power it will be. As both the Iranian people and their government navigate this critical transition, the answers they find may determine the Middle East's future for generations to come. Thank you for watching this video about Iran's future in the Middle East. If you liked it, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more content like this.